When you hear the name Nestle, you probably think of that box of brown powder that really only tastes like chocolate psychosomatically. But turns out there's a lot more behind this rabbit and that smile that says, "Come over to my van, little girl, I got some free candy for you." Nestle, run out of Switzerland, is currently the biggest food company in the world. Buying up other competitors like Pfizer and Gerber, they control nearly the entire world's production of baby formula, as well as most of the breakfast cereals you eat, the water you drink, and pretty much everything you consume. Being such a big company, would you be surprised to hear that they've been up to some pretty nefarious goings-on over the years? Well, strap yourselves in, because you're in for a wild ride on this one. One of Nestle's biggest products is bottled water. Nestle Waters is so big their bottled water sales are more than half of all of PepsiCo's drink sales combined. So for Nestle, bottled water is a huge business. So how did they get such a death grip on the world's water? Well, turns out the people who run Nestle aren't the nicest people you're ever going to meet. Through tons of lobbying, they, along with a couple other corporations, persuaded the World Water Council to change drinking water designation from a right to a need. So clean drinking water is not a human right, but rather it's a need that needs to be met. Or in other words, a market that needs to be filled. If water was labeled a right, then it would need to be supplied for free or as cheaply as possible. But if it's only a need, well, then let's sell it for as much profit as we can, right? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? What Nestle does is this. They go around the world to different countries, buying or bullying until they take control of all clean water supplies, aka aquifers. They then bottle that water and sell it back at a huge markup. Last year, during the big California drought, they extracted over 36 million gallons from national forests and sold the water back to California for huge profits. Now, you might think that in countries like the US, Canada, countries in Europe, that this might not be such a big deal, and you're right, it's not. Many cities have good water filtration already, and drinking bottled water is really more of a homeopathic choice for some people anyway. But what about countries that don't have good water filtration infrastructure, or just don't have any whatsoever? Well, Nestle loves to swoop in like a frat boy on a college freshman and buy all the available water. So the only option for people living in these poor countries to get access to clean water is to buy it from Nestle. Because remember, according to Nestle, clean water is not a human right. So if you can't afford it, then it sucks to be you, right? The main problem with this, besides the fact that it's totally messed up, is it makes these cities and countries have less of a need to upgrade their own water infrastructure. If you can just buy it, then why would you need to invest all that time and money to make your own, right? So while clean water is for sale, a lot of the water that people bathe in, cook with, etc., it's still dirty. And when I say dirty, I don't mean like, oh, it's just there's a little bit of dirt in there. I'm talking about water that literally will just kill you. I mean, just imagine every house you've ever seen on Hoarders, drain that into one cup, and that's what you take a bath with. But Nestle's reign of terror in the third world does not stop there. In fact, it gets a lot worse. As stated previously, one of Nestle's biggest products is their infant formula line. Now, you'd think that since we're dealing with food products aimed at literal babies, that they'd be careful about how they handle it. You'd think so, wouldn't you? As far back as the 1970s, Nestle has pushed its products into emerging third world markets. Now, this is obviously nothing new. As countries develop, more people have money, more chances to earn higher profits. It's just Econ 101. The problem here, though, goes hand in hand with the monopoly they have on water. To make the baby formula, guess what you have to mix it with? Water. But as I mentioned, the only way to get clean water sometimes is to buy it from Nestle. You have families in these countries that literally earn only a few cents per day. The choice is often between water and the formula itself. So, left with pretty much no other choice, they have to mix the formula with the dirty water and feed it to their child. Now, because they can't just go off and buy more so easily, to make it last as long as possible, they dilute it even further. So these kids are basically just drinking dirty water with only a small pinch of any kind of nutrition whatsoever. In fact, in many of these communities, infant malnutrition and mortality rates may have actually gone up as a result of Nestle's heavy marketing towards mothers, although there's not enough evidence to come to a conclusion yet. As a grand gesture, Nestle provided free formula to hospitals to give to new mothers. And that sounds pretty great, right? You know, free formula for mothers who can't afford it. I mean, it's great for everybody. But once you look past all the fake smiles and the fake handshakes and all that, you start to see what's really going on. Let's veer off topic for just a second here. Breastfeeding is important for two main reasons. One, it feeds the baby, which turns out that's pretty important. And two, it transfers parts of the mother's immune system from her to the child. This is why you're not supposed to drink or smoke or take certain medications while you're nursing. One important point, if you stop breastfeeding for about a week or so, it dries up and the hormones go back to normal. Okay, everybody, pop quiz. How much baby formula do you think Nestle provided to these mothers so graciously? Time's up. It was a week. And of course, to make it last as long as possible, they would add more unfiltered, unclean water, so it would last anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. So by the time the formula ran out, the mothers couldn't nurse anymore, and so they had no choice but to buy more formula from Nestle. And if they wanted to give their child any actual clean water, well, guess who was the only pony in town? They made an entire generation of mothers who raised malnourished children, who then grew up and were too weak to breastfeed their own children, so they relied on Nestle baby formula, Nestle water, and the cycle continues. Nestle was basically a crack dealer on the street, giving everyone one free hit because they knew they'd be back for more, and it's not like they had anywhere else to go anyway. By controlling the world's water, they made clean water a luxury item, and by heavily marketing their formula as a safe way to feed your child, they created a never-ending cycle of customers who had to choose between feeding their child, giving it dirty water, or watching it die. And there was always a chance that would happen anyway. And that's why Nestle might just be the most evil company in the world.